Breaking tonight, America is just hours away from another government shutdown, and Washington is in chaos. The United States is now just hours away from another potential government shutdown, and tensions in Washington are reaching a critical point. With the midnight deadline fast approaching, lawmakers remain locked in a bitter stalemate over funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Negotiations are ongoing, but so far, there is no clear breakthrough. The political divide is deep, emotions are high, and the clock is ticking. At the center of the standoff is DHS funding, the agency responsible for border security, immigration enforcement, airport screening, disaster response, and national protection efforts. Without an agreement in Congress, funding for key operations could lapse, triggering disruptions across the country. Republican lawmakers are demanding stronger border security provisions as part of any funding deal. They argue that the ongoing migrant surge and security concerns require stricter enforcement policies and additional funding for Border Patrol operations. According to GOP leaders, approving a funding package without addressing border issues would be irresponsible. On the other side, Democratic lawmakers insist that government funding should not be tied to policy changes they consider controversial or extreme. They argue that essential national security operations must continue without being used as leverage in political negotiations. Behind closed doors, discussions have stretched late into the evening. Leadership from both parties has been meeting repeatedly, attempting to craft a compromise that can pass both chambers of Congress. However, sources familiar with the talks say progress has been slow and trust between the parties remains fragile. If no agreement is reached before the deadline, federal agencies could begin preparing for shutdown procedures almost immediately. Thousands of federal workers would be furloughed without pay. Essential workers, including TSA agents, Border Patrol officers, and Coast Guard members, would continue working but without guaranteed paychecks until funding is restored. Air travelers could begin noticing longer security lines at airports if staffing shortages occur. Immigration courts may face delays. Federal grant programs could pause, and disaster response planning could face administrative slowdowns. While Social Security and Medicare benefits would continue, many other government services would experience disruptions. National parks could close. Small business loan processing could stall. Government contractors could face delayed payments, impacting local economies. Financial markets are also watching closely. Past shutdowns have shaken investor confidence and created volatility. Economists warn that prolonged uncertainty could negatively affect economic growth, particularly if federal workers miss multiple pay periods. This would not be the first time Washington has faced such a crisis. Government shutdowns have occurred several times over the past decade, often resulting from political disagreements over spending priorities. In previous instances, lawmakers eventually reached last-minute deals, but only after significant public pressure and economic strain. Public frustration is already rising. Many Americans are expressing concern over what they see as repeated political dysfunction. Federal employees, in particular, are bracing for uncertainty, unsure whether their next paycheck will arrive on time. President Biden has urged Congress to act swiftly, emphasizing that national security should not be compromised by partisan gridlock. In a recent statement, the administration called on lawmakers to pass a clean funding bill to keep the government operational. Meanwhile, House and Senate leaders are signaling that negotiations will continue right up to the deadline. Some lawmakers remain optimistic that a short-term funding extension could be introduced to buy more time for broader negotiations. However, even that temporary measure requires bipartisan cooperation, something that has proven elusive in recent days. The Department of Homeland Security itself has warned that operational disruptions could have serious consequences. Border operations require consistent funding to maintain personnel, surveillance systems, and enforcement efforts. Any lapse in funding could create vulnerabilities during a period of heightened global tensions. As midnight approaches, Capitol Hill remains tense. Staffers are moving quickly between offices. Lawmakers are reviewing draft proposals. The atmosphere is urgent, uncertain, and unpredictable. If history is any indication, a deal could emerge at the very last moment. But until signatures are on paper and votes are cast, nothing is guaranteed. For millions of Americans, the outcome of these negotiations could have real-world consequences. From airport delays to federal paychecks, from border security operations to small business loans, the ripple effects of a shutdown would stretch far beyond Washington. Tonight, the nation watches and waits. Will Congress overcome partisan divisions and reach an agreement in time? Or will America wake up to another costly government shutdown? One thing is certain, the next few hours will be critical. Stay with us for continuing coverage as this developing story unfolds. Breaking tonight, America is just hours away from another government shutdown, and Washington is in chaos.